Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. The last session of the conference. Okay, so I understand that I'm the only thing between you and your beer and food. So I apologize for that, but hopefully we'll make it as fun as possible. Last session is always something special. I was actually kind of worried because the organizers told me that there is no internet in here, and I'm showing a SaaS product. So, so I had to download Fabric on my machine. No, I'm just kidding. There's no such thing. This is actually a big laptop. It's very heavy. We call it East US 3. And I'm hoping that this would be a valuable hour. So what I did, just to satisfy what the organizers told me about the internet, I recorded 7 videos, okay? They came up to about an hour, but I also have to speak for about maybe 15 minutes. So it's gonna go over an hour. So what I'm gonna say is the 7 videos, I uploaded them last night to YouTube. So if you go to Lino Tadros TV on YouTube, there is a channel there. And there is all the Star Trek conference, all the videos that we're showing today. So if you miss anything, you're more than welcome to go and take a look at the videos again. I tried to actually make between 7 to 10 minute video on all the different features in Fabric, whether it's data engineering, data science, data flow, real-time analytics, all the different things we'll talk about for the next hour. It should be a lot of fun. All right. I'm not going to go through all of that, but I've been in the industry for about 33 years, and currently work as an AI architect for a company called Soliance, and I own my own company for the Training Boss. I'm a Microsoft Regional Director for the last 5 years, and I've been an MVP for 15 years before that. One of the nicest things on this list that I enjoyed in my life is that I spoke on behalf of Microsoft in 54 countries so far in my career. That was a lot of fun for me. And I continue to do that. So this session will be redone 3 times in the next 10 days in Europe. So you have to tell me how does it go, so that we'll make sure it goes even better in the future as well in Europe and also in Australia at the end of the year. All right, so what is the agenda for today? The agenda for today, if you have not worked with Fabric before, I'd like to give you an idea in the next hour how cool that product is, why do you want to use it, why everybody actually should have a hand, whether you're going to use Fabric on other products. Data analytics is a big deal in the industry today. So we'll talk about Fabric for a little bit. We'll talk about the word that you hear all the time. Maybe you don't understand the difference between OneLake and LakeHouse and Direct Lake, and you hear all of these things and you don't know which one is which, and so we'll try to make it easy for that as well. Also very important, whenever you hear the word Parquet and Delta Parquet, and you'll hear something called V-order. What are all these things and optimizations and compression and all of these things? What does it mean for us, and why did Microsoft Fabric base everything on Delta Parquet files as well? And then we will have demos regarding data engineering. We will do something very, very cool called Fabric shortcuts. The biggest problem in the industry of data analytics is we're not working with small pieces of data. It's usually hundreds of terabytes or petabytes or sometimes zettabytes, and we are not able to move the stuff along everywhere we go. Maybe the IT wants to share something with marketing. I cannot just, hey, there you go, there is a zettabyte file. It doesn't work like that. So we have been suffering in the industry with the data movement, and that's the reason why we needed something like Fabric. There's other tools as well. You probably heard of Snowflake, you heard about Databricks. All of these tools are trying to actually create something that the entire team, from your data scientists, data engineers, DevOps, executives that want to run queries, all of these things needs to be in the same place. We cannot just continue to move data around because they're not small data. So that's the main idea in here as well. And then we're going to show the shortcut demo is pretty cool, which is how to have data available, for instance, let's say on Amazon S3 bucket. In the old days, we have to bring that data into our data lake or whatever, but with shortcuts, we can leave the data where it is, even on an S3 bucket. Or maybe we have an Azure blob storage, we have an ADLS Gen 2. We want to leave the data there, and we just want to go ahead and create a link as a shortcut to it to be able to bring it to play in the game. I'm also going to show a couple of videos, one on DataFlow and one on Data Factory, which is data pipelines, how to ingest data from the outside, how to schedule it to run on a specific interval, and stuff like that for transformation of the data. I also have a demo for the real-time analytics, which is mainly KQL databases, using the KQL language to be able to query huge amount of data. So we'll talk about that, and when would you want to use something like this as well. And then we will talk about data warehousing. And this is a point of contention, really. When do I use a data warehouse, or should I stick with a lake house and just put a SQL layer on top of my data? We will talk about all of that stuff as well. So what are the pieces that make actually Fabric? Notice that Microsoft went through these technologies multiple times already to find out exactly what is the correct niche for Microsoft in data analytics. So you probably heard about Azure Synapse. Carrie Payette and I, my dear friend in here, we have taught a lot of Microsoft employees for the last 7 years a lot of training classes on Synapse. And now we're moving things to Fabric as well. Why there was a need to move to Fabric, all right? The contention between having a data lake that has a SQL layer on top of it, or persist everything in SQL data warehouses to be able to get to it. And these are the things that people actually have to rethink. What is the best way for the compute to get the fastest way possible to perform on these huge amount of data without actually paying the price for having something up 24/7, which is very costly as well. So in Fabric, they looked at it from a different angle. They looked at it as, hey, you know what? We have a huge clientele in Power BI. So instead of actually bringing all these millions of people that use Power BI very successfully out of Power BI to do Synapse, for instance, or do some other data analytics, why don't we go to them? Let's go ahead and make Power BI the main platform that will be able to do data ingestion, transformation, curating, even data science for machine learning, and being able to visualize and send these reports as well based on Power BI. So that's the whole idea in here. So data engineering, you're going to see a great demo. Hopefully you like. There is a lot of different data available, sample data available from Microsoft that is free, and it's anonymous access. You don't have to actually have any credentials to use it. I'll show you how to go get these sample data just to play around and see how it works with that as well. We will talk about Data Factory. Data Factory is a main piece. It's different in the Azure Data Factory. It's the same concept, but it's a different way of doing it inside of Fabric as well. So we will be able to see how we do transformation, being able to create pipelines, and be able to bring in data from the outside, delete data, transform data, column filtering, and then having the end of the pipeline, being able to produce a curated data at the end as well. Data science is a big deal, and a lot of people ask, okay, this stuff has been available for a long time. Everything you said here, Lino, I've seen people doing this for decades. You are correct, but the problem is that the data science guy writing code in Scala or R or Python have to finish their job first before they move their prediction and their service that they're creating as a web service, for instance, or whatever, for the other team to see it. They were all working in silos. So now this is a product that unified everybody together. So whether you're working on experimentation for data science, or you're doing DevOps, or your job is to do DB administration, pretty much to do SQL, maybe you're not a Python guy, but you are a very good SQL guy. There is one place where everybody can actually use their talent to be able to help the company forward as well. Data warehousing, we will see in the last demo for today, the data warehousing piece, how to actually create tables and being able to copy into these tables from whatever you're getting the data flows or data pipelines into it as well. And the main difference, by the way, when you start talking about lake houses, when you hear about those and data warehouses, the lake houses are read-only, okay? So these are mainly for analytics to get queries out of them. If you need to write back, I mean, if you read and write, you probably will need a data warehouse. So for read-only purposes and for speed, of course, lakehouse would be just fine for that as well. The real-time analytics, this is something, for instance, let's say you have IoT devices. Maybe you are working on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean, and there is like 10,000 sensors for temperature, for pressure, whatever, and they're sending packets of data every 5 seconds, okay? There is a lot of data being ingested coming in. This is a great place to actually get real-time analytics and being able to use data science to do anomaly detection to find out if the pressure is going high. In about 2 hours, this turbine is going to go down. All of these things could be done automatically in the same environment as well. One of the best things Microsoft did for Azure is log analytics workspaces. It's definitely a moneymaker. If you've ever seen how much you spend on log analytics workspaces in Azure, you will be shocked. It's pretty one of the money makers for Microsoft. Even if your VMs or your services are not running in Azure, even if they're running somewhere else, you can still use log analytics to do that. It's a huge amount of data that is being logged into that log analytics workspace. This is a great place, real-time analytics as well, in Fabric to be able to digest and ingest this data and being able to query it using the KQL language was extremely fast and very elegant to do that as well. I wanted to say that the old days of data engineers and data scientists and business analysts, of course, they all worked in silos and had to deploy their work to other members of the team at their own time, and that was a problem in an organization. In Fabric, this is a thing of the past. It is the one environment that they all share a common platform to accomplish this work. So this is a graph in here that hopefully you can see what the problem was. So you'll see all the way at the top in here, maybe IT had its own data, and then sales need to have access to this data, so we had to do data movement. And then operations need to have to access, so another data movement. And then marketing needs to do that, so we need a fourth time to move the same exact data over and over again. And then we actually ended up streaming that to put it in an outside database. That's another data movement. And all the way at the end, data movement going back and forth between all the databases, whether it's Oracle, SQL Server, whatever. That's okay if you're having a very small database, but data analytics is not about small data. It's about petabytes, like I said, and zettabytes, and amazing amount. We cannot keep passing things like this along. So the major thing that came in with Fabric is OneLake. OneLake, folks, is, the way I like to explain it, for instance, is if you ever, I'm sure everybody here have used OneDrive before, okay? OneDrive on all your laptops and desktops, you can put a file, you can have it everywhere. Think about OneLake as your OneDrive for business data, okay? So if you really put that in your mind, that means all your major databases and tables and everything else, no matter where you are, there is this bucket called the OneData. It doesn't matter how many workspaces you're gonna have, they're all gonna be in that OneLake. So that's a good thing for us to play with. Six things I want you to remember about OneLake. First of all, the OneDrive for business data. Second one, it's a SaaS for enterprise data as data lake, okay? So it's a fully managed, because it's SaaS, it's fully managed and fully governed by Microsoft. It can be used over multiple analytic engines. Again, if you have the data in there, there is no reason to move it. Even if you need it in, for instance, you want to use it in Databricks, or you want to use it in Snowflake, or you want to use it in Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, you just want to do a query. There is no reason to move anything. OneLake will be able to be available to all of these compute engines for analytics engines. Logical data organization. Delta Parquet format universal across your entire organization. So that's something that moved away from Synapse, for instance. They decided we're going to go with Delta Parquet. And I have a whole screen slide to talk to you about Delta Parquet and why that was chosen for the compression, for the speed, for the analytics power, and also the Delta piece has a lot of different things that we will talk about that brings a lot of power to that format as well. There's also something that you can download directly from the Microsoft website. It's free. It's called OneLake File Explorer. So even on my laptop in here, I installed this, and all my workspaces for different clients, for different customers, I have actually different workspaces created, and I have all my data in one place, and I can actually, even if I'm disconnected, I can actually go ahead and take a look at the JSON files and the Delta Parquet files and the log files for the Delta Parquet all on my machine as well. It makes it very, very easy to monitor that stuff. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about Lakehouse. So whenever you hear me saying the word Lakehouse, it's data architecture platform for three things: storing, managing, and analyzing. So when we go into the demo, for instance, you'll notice once I create a Lakehouse, there will be two things created for you, something called files and something called tables, okay? In the files section, this is where you can maybe ingest from the outside or even from your own machine some CSV, TSV, JSON file. Whether it's structured or unstructured, that's no problem. You can upload it directly into your Lakehouse. The goal behind these files is at some point we need to load them into tables. And the table format in the Lakehouse and in Fabric in general is the Delta Parquet format. So you can actually bring in the CSVs and TSVs and JSON or whatever kind of format you want, but at some point these things would have to be loaded into a table so that you can compute about it. So we're not going to actually use a CSV file and do SQL on it, okay? So we want to actually be able to put that layer of SQL on top of whatever structured, unstructured data you have and be able to get to it from inside of Fabric or from even any tool from outside of Fabric, let's say Looker or Tableau, or Microsoft Management Studio for SQL. All of these things can actually get to that Parquet, Delta Parquet, using that layer automatically for us. In order to achieve seamless data access across all compute, whether it's from Microsoft or not, Delta Lake is chosen as the unified table format, which is great. So let's take a second and talk also about what is the Delta Parquet file format and why was it chosen? Why is it so cool? So first of all, it has something called the ACID transaction enable. The ACID, the word ACID stands for atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable. So ensuring the database operations are all of these four things is very important, okay? The second part is time travel. Time travel is very important. It's almost having like a resource control on your Delta Parquet files. So if I ever need to go roll back, or I need to see, for instance, my data or reports, what it was based on 2 weeks ago, that every time you made a change to that Delta format, it's logged in a JSON file associated with your Delta Parquet file, that it knows exactly what you did, when you did it, and what the operation that happened on that. So you can easily roll back into it. We call it the time travel feature of the Delta Parquet files. It's also designed to handle incremental data loads efficiently. That was always a problem, especially with events, IoT devices sending data every 5 seconds. Incremental, I mean, I don't want to load a petabyte every time, just delete and recreate, delete and recreate. Nobody wants to do that. So you want to make sure that you use something that is very powerful, and with that, time travel, being able to do a source control pretty much on the content of your data in the Delta format, very important for loads, incremental loads, to be very efficient. The Delta format files store modification to files instead of a whole amended file. So it doesn't keep creating files underneath. It actually makes changes into the metadata of the file itself. It doesn't touch the data, makes it go a lot faster. And a lot of times you will hear somebody saying v-order, and you'll not know what exactly they mean by that. So this was not the default when the product got released at the end of last year. But now they changed that in the last release, and that v-order not only is Parquet, it's also Delta Parquet. No, it's Delta Parquet with v-order optimization built into it. And the v-order is a write time optimization on the Parquet file format. Write time, okay? Write, not R-I-G-E-T. Write means I'm writing and reading, okay? Write time optimization to the Parquet file format. It enables lightning fast reads under Microsoft Fabric Compute, such Power BI, SQL, Spark, and all the other things that can actually use SQL as well will be available through the v-order. Makes the write very, very fast as well. All right, we got to the first demo. So I don't know how this is going to work. I've never done a talk in 54 countries so far, running a video and speak over, so hopefully it will work. The first demo is about creating a lake house, adding a file to it, converting the file into Delta Parquet table, and then using SQL endpoints to query the data. So let's go ahead and run this guy. Let's see if this thing works. All right, so this is how you go to Parquet. You'll notice here at the top, I don't know if it's going to work. Oh, look at that. All right. So all the way at the top in here, I can go to fabric.microsoft.com. or app.fabric.microsoft.com. Both of them will take you to the same place. And then all the way at the bottom there, you will see something called Power BI, see? But right now it says data engineering. If you click on this guy, you'll be able to go to data science, data engineering, whatever. I actually decided to create a workspace. I don't have any workspaces yet. So I'm going to create one. I called it Stir Trek Workspace. This is just to create and define a workspace that we're going to work on for the next maybe 5 or 6 different demos. So once you create a name, give it a description, you can probably also, over there, let me see if I can pinpoint it. Over here, I can give it a logo so I can easily see it on the left side of the screen. I can also add a domain to it, just for somebody like me, being a consultant, have multiple products, maybe a company bought another company. I can actually create different domains, associate that workspace with that specific domain if I want to as well. Excellent. So from that point on, what we're going to do, we're going to create the workspace. Oh, there is another thing here in the video I wanted to show, is that it's required that you have some kind of a Fabric capacity. I can take the next hour and talk to you about the pricing and the capacity. I'm not going to do that, otherwise you'll shoot me. But it's expensive, okay? You can actually start from something called F2 capacity, which costs about $250 a month. It's not cheap, but again, for somebody who wants to learn. Remember, there is a 60-day trial, so anybody could get this and play with Fabric for 60 days for free, and you don't get the cheap stuff. You get the one in the middle. It's called F64, which allows you to do almost everything you want to do. Let me stop this for a second, because I started now talking. Oh, no, go back. Okay, so the most important thing here, folks, is to understand is that it goes from F2 to F4, F8, F16, F32, F64. F64 is the one we have right now and you can get for 60 days. But it will keep going, F28, F256. So don't get scared. It starts from like $250 per month all the way to $250,000 per month on the last one, all right? It all depends, of course, what you're working with. And this is public knowledge. You can go to the website, say, show me the pricing, and they will have all the F capacities and will tell you exactly how much it will cost to get that, okay? All right, let me, I'm gonna move this forward already. Let's see where we are in here. Previous run. Why is it doing it? All right. Okay, the video started again. Let me move it forward. All right, good. I didn't anticipate that. I should not touch the video once it starts, okay? We learn now. Because the part on my machine here, you can actually make it go forward. So I've never done these videos in the middle of talk before. So I wanted to move it forward, but there's no way to do it. Maybe you can do it up here. Yeah? Yeah. All right.
This is very hard to do, but...
This is very hard to do, but it's okay. We'll make it happen. No, I'm good. Thank you, hon. Thank you so much. All right, let me bring it back up a little bit in here, and we'll start that. So I'm right inside of my lake house. I noticed there are two things, the files and tables that I told you about. And at this point, I have a lot of choices. I can upload a file from my hard drive. I can use a DataFlow to ingest it from somewhere from the outside. I can create a pipeline. I can open up a notebook and write some Python, or if you're a data scientist and you feel comfortable with that, no problem. So this is not forcing you to learn how to do something one way only. I can also bring in sample. I can use a shortcut to like Amazon S3 bucket or ADLS Gen 2, or I can bring in a sample, for instance. So in my case in here, what I ended up doing, I have 125,000 rows in a products.csv file. And I would like to actually go ahead and bring that CSV file by uploading it into files. And once I do that, I would really like to convert it pretty much into a Delta Parquet file as well. So, why did it stop? Okay, we'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone so we can continue. All right, so now let's go and we'll say upload the files. And there is like I said, the items.csv file. I'm going to upload it right there in Fabric. And I'm going to go up one. There is the items.csv. And you might call it item.csv, but you don't want to call it item. Maybe you want to change the name for it to products.csv or something like that. It's only a 32 megabyte file. But when I upload it to my files in the lake house, remember this is structured, unstructured data. We are not yet at a point where I have it queryable. So after that file gets loaded, what I can do is to go ahead and hover over the name, and you'll notice there is the 3 dots next to it. Of course, you can click on it and you can see the data. There is, like I said, 125,000 records in this file. And it happened pretty fast, actually. It took a few seconds to load that into Fabric. And now, once it comes back, I would like to say load to table, and that will take this 120,000 different rows, and it will create a delta parquet file out of it and put it on the tables. One thing you have to remember also about parquet and delta parquet, it's always going to be lowercase, okay? Even if your file is called something with a uppercase, when you load it into parquet, we'll always bring it down to lowercase for the names. Be careful with that because parquet, delta parquet is case sensitive. And we have these problems sometimes when we deal with warehouses. When you bring in the data from something that is casing different than what you have in the table, it will not work. All right, so I'm going to rename it from items.csv. I'm going to call it products.csv. We'll say rename this guy. And now I'm actually hopefully be ready to load it. See, load to table. I'll say let's create a new table. Notice it has a capital P in the name of the CSV, but when I say load the table in a new table, it will always bring the P lowercase. The name always will get converted to lowercase p. I'm going to make sure that it has the header and it's a comma delimited, not anything else. And now when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and click on load. We won't have to wait much, it's only 32 megabyte. So this will end up creating a table for me that is the delta parquet file. Now this delta parquet file is available for me to go to a SQL endpoint. Right now, notice all the way at the top in there, folks. Let me show you. See what it says here, Lakehouse. I can bring it down, and there will be a second item in there called SQL endpoint. That means for the Lakehouse, I can see my files, and I can see also my delta parquet files. But if I'd like to query into it, I can change this to be a SQL endpoint, and then I can write my SQL statement against the delta parquet file, or I can go and find out what the URL is for my table in Parquet and go hook it up from Management Studio in SQL or Looker or Tableau or whatever, and it will be able to get to the data and query into it, no problem. So there it is. These are it will bring only the first 1,000 out of the 125,000 just for you to sample what's available in the delta parquet file. And after that, I'm going to change this guy all the way to the top to a SQL endpoint. So we'll go in here. What am I doing? Come on. All right, notice that also when it brought it in, these are the type of the columns. You see, doubles and strings, floats, and all of these. They have to be legal delta parquet. Sometimes it has to do the conversion, and sometimes you will be using something that is not compatible with delta parquet, and you'll have to fix it first before you bring it in as well. So that's an important thing as well. At some point in here, oh yeah, now I'm showing you the JSON file. When I click on that, see, this is a beautiful thing. This is what's in the delta log file to tell you, for instance, the last time you did this, when did you do it? There is a date time stamp, and what was the operation? Was it an append operation, a delete operation? What kind of operation? So this will end up being the time travel piece because I can actually roll it back to last week's file or 2 days ago file. So this becomes very, very important, available only in the delta format of the Parquet file alone. So this is the one responsible for that. All right. And now hopefully we'll go into a SQL point. Yeah, see, I'm going to go now and use a SQL point. And by the way, like I said, with voice and everything, you can go to YouTube and watch the same videos. I uploaded them yesterday for all of you because I know we don't have a lot of time. See, over there, now there is a SQL endpoint beside the Lakehouse as well. So once I choose that SQL endpoint, did I stop it? No, hopefully not. Click on this guy. All right, so now I'm in a completely different view for the Lakehouse from a SQL endpoint. Notice if you take a look at the left side, it looks very much like what we see inside of SQL, like Management Studio, having the schemas, the tables, everything else you're used to. But over here, what you're looking at is a delta parquet files. Okay, this is not a Microsoft SQL database or anything like that. So from that point on, it just put a SQL layer on top of these delta format, so I can actually start creating my queries. And the queries don't have to happen from here. Like I said, you can do it from outside tools that understand SQL. It's true SQL, so it will be able to do that. So we'll say select category, one of the columns, and the other one will get an average or a min or a max or something on the wholesale that we're trying to do. We'll give it a name, for instance, for our average column. And then we'll say from products, and maybe we can also group by the category as well. So once this is done and run the query, this is a pure T-SQL query, but there is no database. There is all Delta Parquet format files everywhere. So we'll say from products, and then we'll even do a group by in here on the category itself. And again, it's going against 125,000. I want you to see the speed of that in a SaaS product like this. We'll say run this guy. So in about 2 seconds, it found out we have 11 different categories. One of them was unidentified. It's a null, but it has all the average for all the products out of the 125,000 right inside of there as well. So this actually gives you just a quick glimpse of what this is supposed to work like. Oh, and you can visualize all that stuff, so you can actually send it to a report. You can open it in Excel. There is a glitch actually in Fabric as of today, which is if you click on Open in Excel or explore the results in a visual way, it gives you an error because you didn't highlight the 3 lines of code, even though that's the only thing available. So right now, to use any of those, you have to highlight the 3 lines of the SQL code and then click on Open in Excel or expose in data visualization or anything like that. Otherwise, it will not work. Maybe in the future that will be fixed because it's already enabled. Otherwise, they should be grayed out if I cannot get to them. All the way on the left, folks, you'll notice that I have my workspace, StirTrack workspace. Inside of there, I will get my Lakehouse, and I'll get my SQL endpoint. Makes it very easy on the left side to always be available for you. If you don't find everything you want, click on the StirTrack workspace, and that will take you to a page where it shows you everything. So it shows you the StirTrack Lakehouse, and then under type, you'll see what is a SQL endpoint. Later on, we will explain what a semantic model is. Think of it as the old name of data sets in Power BI. That's what the semantic model is all about for the data sets for Power BI, for instance, which gets created for you automatically as well. So this is the first video pretty much. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this forward. I'm going to skip the second video. The second video, you can see it on YouTube. I don't want to waste more time, but it shows you exactly what I did. But if I open up Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, the latest release, and I want to get to the same data in the Lakehouse, it will just show you in like 5 minutes how to actually copy and paste the URL for the OneDrive, OneLake, sorry, and go and hit it from SQL Server. Might be a good idea if you want to see how to do that as well. So I'm going to skip that video. I want to talk to you a little bit about the modes. How many people here actually use Power BI or do their data in Power BI? All right, so there's a few people that use Power BI. So you're probably very aware of the fact that we have direct query, we have import, and now there is something new in Fabric called Direct Lake. But you're probably familiar with the first two, direct query and import. These are big deals. So the data query that most people have used, you can see from the graph all the way at the top in here, it's a little bit expensive because, not price-wise, expensive time-wise, because the Power BI engine queries the data at the source. So that, unfortunately, makes it pretty slow. But the good thing is you're always getting real data. That's the live data. It's the latest data available. But the trajectoire going all the way back to where the data is, that is pretty slow. So there is good and bad. Slow, but real time, okay? The second one for the import, we almost like take a snapshot of the data, bring it in, all right? And the import performance can be better, of course, because the data is already cached and optimized for DAX and M and all of these things in Power BI. But you're not working on the latest data. You'll have to go refresh every once in a while. It all depends on how new you want the data, all right? If you can live every midnight to actually get the data, it's a good way to do that. So you can not get the best of both worlds. The best thing for me would have been, I don't want it to be slow. I want it to be very fast, but I want it to be real data. And that's what Direct Lake brought to the table. It's going directly against the Delta Parquet file format, and it's perfect because it's doing the two things that direct query and import are best at. The unfortunate part about Direct Lake is it doesn't come with all the SKUs. You have to spend some moolah to actually be able to use Direct Lake in Power BI. So the minimum of the F64, the one in the middle, you have to use that, which you will get with the 60-day trial as well, but it's not going to be available for everything from the beginning. Again, supported for FSKUs only. To use it, you have to have a minimum of one lakehouse or a warehouse with one more Delta table in the workspace. So if you don't have any of those, you can use Direct Lake whatsoever. All right. I want to talk to you a little bit about DataFlow Gen 2. This is a new thing The Gen 2 is new in Fabric. It supports Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. So if you hear about ADLS Gen 2, it supports it out of the box. It enhanced compute engines to make things way faster. More output targets. So now you can actually target ADLS Gen 2, an Azure SQL database, Power BI. There are new features. Now you can pass parameters to the DataFlow itself. You can create from templates. You can track lineage. And whenever you hear the word lineage, that means it will show you the step that happens before an activity in DataFlow and what happens after. So if you don't want to see it as a steps 1, 2, 3, 4, you just want to see it in a diagram to show you this what happened and then this piece happened in a block. So it will become a diagram to show you the trajectoire of how the lineage of the DataFlow took place. You can do that as well. All right, let's do a demo. This demo in here is bringing, remember the old days of Northwind? Northwind is still available and live and well available on the internet on the Microsoft website. So you can actually go against Northwind, AdventureWorks, or Wide World Importer. All of those are available. So I wanted to use something small, but I wanted to use a different concept. Instead of getting it from a lake or my SQL Server database or my Oracle, I decided to use something like OData, a REST API, to make a REST API call and get the data set using the call using HTTPS, for instance, okay? And target the data to go inside of a DataFlow activity. So let's go ahead and run this guy in here, and we'll spend a few minutes showing in the data engineering. Notice this is the continuation from the previous video, but now I would like to go ahead and create a DataFlow. The way to do it, see all the way at the top, I'm in the Star Trek workspace. There is a new button there. If I click on it, let me try to bring it in. This one, if you bring it down, all the different things that you can possibly do, like experimentation, data science, DataFlow, you see, everything is in here. So I'm interested in the second one, it says DataFlow Gen 2. Once you create one of those, it will change the screen. It will create it as part of your workspace, of course. And again, you can import from Excel. You can import from Microsoft SQL Server. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But look at how many things. I mean, these are not all of it. See all the way at the end in there, it says more. All the way there, it says more. If I click on it, there would be hundreds of different connectors that you can get data from Oracle to Snowflake to Databricks to whatever you want, okay? Power Platform, you can get the data from whatever you want. Dataverse, all of these things. In my case in here, I'd like to look or search for something that has the word OData on it, okay? So I went and looked for OData. See, you can see file-based, like the CSVs, Parquet files, XML. So you can actually try all of these things. In my case, I looked for OData, and I found a service that is available and implemented in Fabric that will allow me to actually make an OData REST API call to get the data from whatever is available. In my case in here, I didn't want to do authentication and OAuth and have a token and bearer token. I just used something from Microsoft as a sample that is anonymous. It's open. You don't have to authenticate. But if you need to, it's built in. You can actually put in your bearer token and you authenticate with OAuth 2 and do whatever you want to do as well. That is the OData one right there. Click on that. What am I saying? Move it. Okay. I guess you'll find out when you watch the video. I have no idea what I said. All right. All right, so in the URL in here, I actually went to Microsoft, found out where they have all their sample data, just got that from their website and plugged it right inside of here. So this is, can't see very well. Let me see if I can read it from here. I'm getting old. Oh yeah, so this is services.odata.org version 4, and you get to the Northwind. And they have all the other databases that Microsoft is very famous for as well. Alrighty, so once you do that and choose the data, you don't need to bring in all of Northwind. There's hundreds of tables in here. I just picked a couple like customers and employees and orders and orders detail or something like that. I just used a couple and then I said next. And these are the only 2 or 3 that it was brought into the data flow. All right, so now it's bringing the data from the data flow. That is some of the data, just a sampling of the data itself. One of the things that you'll have to do, there will be types of columns that are not supported in Delta Parquet. That will fail. So you'll have to remove anything of a type that is not supported by Delta Parquet. Like for instance, the orders one had a column called photo. Photo is not supported, okay? So you'll need to delete that. Of course, if there is a reason for you to have it, you'll have to do some more surgery to actually convert it to something that Delta Parquet, and that will be done with transformation, like we're gonna see in pipelines later on, and so on. And here, this one has 4 different columns that are not supposed to be there, so I'm going to delete those before I actually take it, run the data flow to bring the data into my lakehouse. We'll give it here another couple of seconds to see that all the fields on both the orders and the orders detail coming in from the Northwind database does not have anything illegal for Delta Parquet files. And then the last piece, all the way you see at the bottom there, says the destination. So add data destination. So far, we know where is it coming from the OData, right? Now we need to tell it where is it going to go to. So it could be into a database, it could be into a lake house, it could be whatever. In my case, of course, I want to put it in my Star Trek lake house that I created in my workspace. So let's go ahead and bring this up. See, these are the choices. Azure SQL database, a warehouse, a lake house, data Explorer, yep. So there we go. So this is the target. This is not the source anymore. I'm going to say put it in the lake house. We'll say next. And once you do that, notice it's validating the connection. And it will show you all the content of your lake house. I have my Star Trek workspace. Let's open this guy up. And now I have my Star Trek lake house. So you'll have to go exactly which lake house you would like to put that in, because you might have multiple lake houses, and you might actually have multiple workspaces that are part of your OneLake as well. So you'll have to be very specific. We'll give it a name here. We'll call it orders. That's the name of the table in the Parquet, in the Delta Parquet format that I want. And once you do that, it will go ahead and show you, oh, and good, we'll have a problem. See these 3 different ones called order date, required date, and ship date? They have an error saying Parquet doesn't like that, because it doesn't know what is a date time zone. That's the type of the field coming in from the database, and that is not acceptable. So that means I have to stop everything, cancel this. This is not going to work. And I have to go back into the transformation, and I need to change the type of these 3 fields to something that Delta Parquet understands. So that's usually we're going to have to the cleanup part, the cleanup and the transformation and the curating of the data to make sure it's available. So notice in here, I went to the transformation and I said, change the type for this guy. And now I'm going to click on both of them together so I don't do it one by one. And I'm going to say, change this from date time zone to date time. Date time is understood by the Delta Parquet format. So once I do that, now I can continue and go forward. And I know now that I'm not going to get any errors. So hopefully when we say, go to next for the, I need to set the target yet because I canceled. So I need to set the target. All right, we'll go ahead and set the target again into the lake house. We'll do the same thing we did before, but this time we will not get the 3 errors on the 3 date time pieces. We'll see that. Yep, there is the lake house. And we'll say next. And now notice there is no error. So I can keep moving forward by finishing up the creation of that table into the Delta Parquet format. So what I did right now with the data flow is I went out, got a data from completely outside. It could be from a completely different source, and we have hundreds of connectors to that. And I was able to bring it in as a first-class citizen into the Delta Parquet files in my lake house right away. This part in here is very important as well. Notice there is no save button. There is no save button. This is automatically going to be created for you. There is the DataFlow 1 in here. It's a good idea to change the name of it. You can click on it and go back and change the name all the way to the top, or you can click on the ellipses and say properties and change the name directly from the properties, which is much easier. But you see that little thing that is spinning there? That is not bringing the data. All right? That is the publishing is in progress. There's a difference between publishing the data flow and refreshing the data flow. Refreshing is the one that gets the data. But the one that is spinning right there is publishing the data flow. It's not bringing any data whatsoever. And then once it's done, we'll move here a little bit, and then the refreshing will start. See, this guy is running now. And the refreshing is getting maybe about 150,000 records coming in from there. And this is the only time the table will be created in my Delta Parquet format. So the creation takes time for the data flow, and the refreshing is the one that gets the real data, and you'll have to be patient for both of them to take place. And depending on how many times you're going to do this, you can always go back to the refresh history and find out when were the last times that I refreshed. That means I got data from the OData. It could tell you maybe every midnight on Friday, and you can show you for the last 3 months all the times that it successfully, maybe one of them failed. I can see the history of all of that stuff as well. I'm changing the name of the data flow because I didn't like the name DataFlow 1, so we'll give it a better name. And now you go ahead and do a publish again, and again, it will go through it. Now it has a much better name. See the properties in here. I didn't have to go back to change the name. From the properties, I could have changed my data flow right there as well. All right, so that's the video about the creation of that. Is there something else I'm showing? No, I don't think so. I think this will be done with that. What am I showing here? Products. Oh yeah, sometimes when you go back after refreshing, the table will not be called orders, it will be called unidentified. You just do the Shift F5 on the browser and it will go and show you the name. But these are glitches, again, that will go away, but sometimes the orders will not show up right away until you refresh, hard refresh the page as well. All right, let's go talk about Data Factory, which is responsible for the data pipeline. By the way, the step that I just showed you for the data flow can be used inside of Data Factory to be able to make it part of a pipeline as well. Data pipelines has over 100+ data stores that you can use like we did with the data flow. Rich orchestration with over 20+ powerful data integration solution, which is really, really powerful. Fast data copy migration. Most people will start by doing copying data from the outside. Makes it very, very easy to do that. And it has a built-in AI to accelerate and automate common data integration tasks as well. You probably heard Microsoft, I don't know if you heard, not a lot of people know about this, but they use something called AI now. They don't talk about it much. Anyway, so AI is in everything, okay? For those of you my age, if you remember Microsoft Bob, if Bob was alive, it would be in AI as well. All right, sounds good. Let's go ahead and do a demo for the Fabric Data Factory, and we'll do creating a data pipeline to a copy data. So let's see in here what I did with this one. All right, we are still in data engineering, and this time, beyond the data flow, I would like to create, using the Fabric Data Factory, I'd like to create a pipeline, and maybe even use my data flow, but you can actually create a notebook, you can create a pipeline that gets used and invoked inside of another pipeline. It could be as comprehensive as you want. So there is the data pipeline here available under new for my workspace. That will change the screen, of course, to be the pipeline. Let's give it a name. We'll call it Stir Trek Pipeline. I believe that's what I ordered. What did I call it? Orders pipeline? Okay, sounds good. We'll say create this guy. All right, same thing. I can actually create an activity in the pipeline. I can go directly to copy data because that's the most used one. I can actually use a template. Or if I don't have a data and I just want to test it out, you are more than welcome to use some of the samples. They have a lot of samples like diabetes data, New York taxi data. So if you would like to bring any of this data, there's like half a gig of data. It's not a lot of data, but something to at least have a realistic analytics on. You can actually do all of these things in here. So let's see, I'm gonna actually create a pipeline activity from scratch in here. And these are the things that you wanna do. I wish I could stop this, but I don't want to. But remember, there is something called do it once, and then something called continuous. That means if I would like to do this continuously, I don't wanna keep issuing the command to go get the data, maybe from an IoT device or whatever. I want it to happen automatically. Also, I can put visually an if condition, a switch, a for each command like you're used to in code, but maybe you're not a coder, but you still want to be able to do that visually. You can actually do all the stuff in the pipelines as well. All right, so let's go down. We'll see which one. Oh yeah, I'm talking about all the different flow conditions, if and switch and for each and all that. Notice there is Azure Databricks. So if you have Azure Databricks, we're not asking people to dump Azure Databricks and come to Fabric. That would be silly already. So you can say whatever Databricks does is great. It does a lot of great things. If you like some of the things that Fabric does, you can just bring your data and do whatever you want. And if you want to take the data after you transform it, do something in Fabric, you want to take it back into Databricks, great, you can do that as well. So they are both actually in love. They work together. A lot of people think they are competing. And of course, there are pieces that are redundant between the two products, but they are partners and they're working together and they're not slamming each other. So at least for me. Anyway, so let's go. Oh, I can actually do it with Office 365 to send an email, for instance, whenever a pipeline fails, succeeds, or just completed. Completed means I don't care if it's successful or failure, it's just completed. So notice this is a copy data. So this is the beginning activity. You can have as many of these blocks as you want. This is just a very simple one, an activity called copy the data. At the bottom of the screen, this is all the parameters that you can pass to this copy data. I can give it a nice name, make it simple, and always notice in here, there will always be these red numbers there is a red number 1 and a red number 1 above source and destination. It means you cannot run this. There are things that are required that are not there yet. You have to solve these ones. Sometimes there is 2 of them, right? So the source, you didn't tell me where to go get the source from until I go there and tell you where the data is. And for the destination, I need to tell you where the destination is. Then these ones will go away. This pipeline is ready to run. Other than that, you cannot possibly run this. So we'll start with the source, for instance. It could be, and I'm showing you also how to go get the data from the internet. So I think this is coming from the Microsoft, is it GitHub? Yeah, there is a GitHub repository that is anonymous. That means anybody can access it. And it has the orders.csv that doesn't have too many, has maybe like 10, 15,000 records in it, just to go fast on that. So I will need to actually click on external, okay? Because I'm getting the data from the outside. And the connection in here, I'm going to say new. And again, you will have the same view that you saw before, 100+ different connectors that you can get to, all right? In my case, I want to use the HTTP one. It could be HTTP, HTTPS. Click on that and give it the link to the GitHub user content that has the CSV available in it. And of course, if this was a protected file, that means you'll need to have authentication. You can pass the authentication, but this one doesn't have any authentication. Everybody can get to it anonymously. So I'm going to be putting that URL in there, and we'll say next, and there it is, right there, all right? I can test the connection. We'll click on it just to make sure that I do have access to it. It will not be a problem. See, it could be an HTTP, or like the OData one, REST API. And let's go ahead and do, we do the file format. I don't want to bring it in as a binary. I want to bring it in as a delimited text. It's a CSV file, and I can change my mind. Maybe it's not a comma, it's something else. And this one was wrong. For instance, the line feed had to be line feed \n, so I changed that to make sure it will import correctly. But you have a choice before you run the pipeline to change all the specification of your source file that you're bringing in. So we'll say OK there. I can test the connection, make sure that I will have access to that file with no problem. And that hopefully will come back and say successful. I've seen that movie before. It will succeed, folks. I'm just kidding. No. All righty. And then the one goes away. I'm still not home free. I have to fix that one above destination. So we'll go ahead and click on this guy. And now I don't want it to external. I want to bring it into my own lake house. So I'm going to click on workspace. And I have my lake house in here. And that is the Star Trek lake house that I created yesterday. And now, do you want to bring it into files or tables? So that's the million-dollar question. I can bring it directly from the outside straight as a Delta Parquet file. Some people say, like, no, I want my raw data, so I want to bring it in as CSV as is, and then I am going to move it myself to be a Delta Parquet, so I can go back to the raw data the way I got it. But you don't have to. You can go straight to the table directly from the ingestion from the pipeline itself. In my case in here, I'm going to actually do it by bringing in as a file. So that will be a CSV file in here. I can put, if I want to create a folder, for instance, in my files in the workspace under the lake house, give it a name, tell it the same settings. How do I want it to be delimited, a comma, and then say the line feed \n. All of these things that I did on the source, I'll bring it the same way, all right? And some people, like I said, will skip that. It will go straight to the table. I don't want to create files. Just take me straight to the Delta format, and you can do that as well. Notice also at the right side of that copy data, there are 4 different icons. One has the check mark, which is if it's successful, now I can drag and drop this to the next copy, to the next activity. If it failures, I want you to send me an email on Office 365. If it's on completion, the last one is completion, that means I don't care if it's successful or a failure. If it's just finished, just go ahead and do something. All of these things are very important as well. All right, so I changed my mind. I said, okay, forget the files. I'm going to go straight to the table Delta Parquet format in my lake house. And it's now loading, giving you all the different tables that you might be interested in. All righty. All right, if I bring this down, there is the products and there is the orders. And maybe I don't want either one of them. I just want to create a brand new table. So I'm going to call it something. I believe it has the word what? I can't read. GH for GitHub. So I call it GH orders, so I can actually see it coming in. And now there is no ones anymore. There is no errors all the way at the top to tell me there is something missing. So I can actually come in here and save this as a data pipeline, and I can actually now execute this pipeline. And this is a very simple one, but remember, you can add more, and maybe before I bring the table, I want to delete all the records in the table. So you can actually have another activity called delete all data before you get to that. And only runs this one if the delete is successful. If the delete fails, don't try to do this. This will be a disaster. I don't want to do that. All right? So you can actually have multiple things. Maybe after that, I would like to do a transformation. Maybe I want to clean up some of the columns. Maybe I want to filter something. All of these things will be at different pipelines. Why would you want to do that? It's because I want to schedule that every time I'm getting all these billions of different records coming in from my IoT devices. I don't want to do this manually every time. I'm going to say, we bring in the data on Friday night, maybe once, run this pipeline automatically to clean up my data and bring it into my lake house. So it will do it automatically for me. I don't have to babysit all the stuff every time. Now the ingestions of the data order, notice, is running. It's in progress. It's running a compute that will run all the stuff in it. I can click on it. This is a very small file, but if this was a terabyte, I want to be able to click on that and open a window to tell me what is it doing? How far are you? How many hours are left to do all the stuff? But with something that small, it will be succeeding in like 25 seconds. But sometimes these things can take 6 hours to bring them in or whatever, and you want to actually monitor what's going on. Is it doing fast enough? How many records so far? What am I waiting for? And so on. Notice it says unidentified right now, but Shift F5 on the browser here in Chrome or in Edge will fix that problem, will make unidentified go away. And once you do that, you will notice it goes back to the GH orders. That's a Delta Parquet format ready for you to put a SQL layer on top of it to be able to query it no matter where you want. All righty? So that is a piece I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you also the shortcuts, one of my favorite things in Fabric. No need to move data around. If you already have the data in an S3 bucket in Amazon, why do you need to bring it in and ingest it? Leave it there. You can do it on AWS S3 buckets, ADLS Gen 2. Lately, they added also Google Cloud Storage. If you have the files there, great. Especially if you have a major amount of data in like a Google BigQuery and so on. You don't want to move all that data. Leave it there and go ahead and do analytics where it lands. And many more coming. And now when you go to Fabric, there would be like maybe 4 icons, one for S3 bucket, one for ADLS, one for Google, and that's it. But notice we only had one before, which is OneLake, and then they added S3 bucket, and then every couple of weeks we get something. So give it another couple of months, and we will have tons of different things that you can shortcut to, which is going to be really, really nice, so we don't have to move data around whatsoever. All right, with your permissions, because of the time, that video is about 7 minutes. It's available on YouTube. If you don't mind, I'll skip it. You can go ahead and, I wanted to show you some more interesting stuff, but shortcut is fun, but it's easy. Just point to it, give it the URL. Make sure you have an access key coming from AWS, because Fabric requires an access key. There is no such thing as anonymous. If you're using a bucket in S3, you have to have an access key. So you'll have to save your key and your secret key from AWS under IAM, and then you'll have to pass it. Otherwise, Fabric does not work with that stuff. All right. I want to talk to you about real-time analytics. This is usually, we used to call it Fabric Custo. It uses the KQL language, very, very fast, very, very nice language. There is a lot of things in this language I wish SQL had. That's how fast and how it is made for a huge amount of data. So if you have terabytes and terabytes of logs, which if you are using Kubernetes, for instance, and you know how many things get logged by pods, you know the amount of data that can get logged from these things. It can get hairy based on that kind of stuff. So I want to be able to query that really quickly, okay? So you can actually definitely do that for log analytics, from IoT data coming in every 5 seconds from an oil rig or something like that, for pressure, temperature, so on and so forth. Also, event hubs and IoT hubs, all of these things can be used with the real-time analytics as well. Let's go ahead and show you a demo here as well on that. It's 4:30. I need like 3 more hours. That's not going to work. All right. So in here for the real-time analytics here, folks, what I'm going to do, first of all, you have to create a database for KQL, okay? So we'll tell it, please go ahead and create me a KQL. I'm going to call it Star Trek KQL database. And from that point on, I can ingest data. I can actually point to an event hub. I can IoT hub, load my log analytics workspace data, do whatever I need to do to bring in a significant amount of data. So the one thing is to bring in the data, ingest the data into the KQL to be able to query on it. And then there is something else called the KQL query set to be able to go back and write queries against the database, the data in the database that you ingested into the KQL itself, the database. So notice all the way at the top, I can actually bring in a KQL database. I can actually do something new that just came up in preview called Event House to be able to have like a lake house, but event house to actually be able to grab all the events from multiple places and bring it in. You can do that. I'm going to call mine StarTrek KQL DB. You can give it whatever name you want. All right, I know everybody wants to go for their beer. That's probably going to be the last demo. There is 2 more demos, but like I promised, they're available on YouTube. One for the warehouse, and there is another one for data science you can take a look at. But again, this video thing is weird. Have internet next time, for the love of God. No, I'm just kidding. All right. All right, so that is my KQL got created. There is a myriad of things that you can bring data from, sample data, local files you can upload just for testing. You can get data from a OneLake, even different OneLake than the one that you're working on, if you have access to it, if they give you permission to it. So for instance, if I wanted to see, for instance, where is my Kusto database would be created, that is the weird name, .kusto.windows. whatever. And then the other one is the ingestion. It's almost the same exact URL, but you put the word ingest dash right in front of it. So it's not the same URL, one for the querying and one for the ingestion. They are 2 different ones, but they are the same except the word ingest dash if you're interested in how it does that. So the querying of the URL and the ingestion of the URL, and that might be very interesting for you as well. Right now, we don't have anything. Everything is zeros. And I'm going to go ahead and start trying to bring in some logs or some IoT data maybe that I have somewhere. I just want to load some sample data. In my case in here, instead of loading a local file, I think I went to sample data and I brought in some samples. I think I did it for the New York taxi, or I did it for something else. I don't remember. It was too late last night. So let's see what this one is. But I did bring in some sample data. But notice there is a lot of choices where you can actually bring this in from, which is pretty cool. Also, your data flows and data pipelines can dump directly into a KQL database as well. So, and you can put it on a Friday night, every hour, every night, and so on. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and say set the destination. You'll have to create a name for the table inside of a KQL database. We'll give it a name in here. What are we going to call it? We'll call it products, KQL, all right? Good enough for me. And now I can actually upload a file from my machine. I think I'm going to upload the same one that I uploaded earlier, which is 32 megabyte. It has 125,000 records in it, just for testing. Oh, very important thing. If you're going to upload the file yourself in the KQL, it cannot be more than 1 gigabyte, okay? It can be more if you're doing a different thing, like a pipeline, but uploading a file physically yourself, it cannot be more than 1 gigabyte per file. Very important. They used to not have that in the user interface, and people always complained about it. Now they put it in the user interface to let you know that that is the maximum. So this one is only 32 megabyte. It should go fast, about maybe 10 seconds or so. And that items.csv file will be loaded in the KQL database. All right, I can preview the data, make sure everything is good. Notice that it messed up the header, so I need to fix it by just saying that the first row is the header. So I'm going to fix that by clicking on that radio button, yeah, and that actually makes the first one, which is good. I can see what the type is, the CSV, the delimiters. Make sure everything is good. All my columns and their type that we converted to are good. Once everything looks good to me, there is no errors, I can actually continue to apply this into my KQL database. And it's now, right now, I'll go ahead and putting that inside of my StarTrek KQL DB. It shouldn't take much time. This is a very small file, so there it is. It's successful. So now when I go back and I can take a look at my my database, my KQL database, I should see there is there you go, a product KQL table that got created. But notice also, it did the compression for me. So the file was 37 megabyte. It used a 3.32 ratio on it, and it was able to bring it down to 11.16 in the Delta Parquet format. It's not a great compression, but if you bring in a fact table with 50 million records and so on, you will see a significant, it could be over a 200-300 different compression ratio. So it can bring it down from gigabytes to megabytes, sometimes the way the compression works. So it works pretty well. Smaller files, no, but bigger files, it will do a pretty good job on that as well. This is the continuous versus the one-time. So you can bring something from OneLake, from an ADLS storage, from an Amazon S3 bucket, or if you want it to continuous, you can actually schedule it once a day, once a week, once whatever, for data flows, for pipelines, for event hubs, and so on and so forth, for the KQL to bring the data in. For something like IoT devices, it would be very important to do that based on a continuous event IoT hub, for instance, or an event grid or something like that. Here's a customer KQL as well. I'm actually just bringing in multiple data, just showing you different ways of doing that, whether you're going to get it from an OData or an HTTP, and so on. I'm going to leave the video running, and there's one more video. If you guys want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay. But like I said, if you go to Lino Tadros TV on YouTube, there is the Microsoft Fabrics, and all of them about Star Trek conference. I did them in the last 24 hours, so we can show this because we don't have internet. I apologize for that. But I know we were way over time, but I'll leave the video running. But if you have any questions, please come to the front and ask. And I want to thank you for having me at Star Trek. This is my first time after all these years. Thank you, Kerry, for having me here. And it was a pleasure to meet a lot of you outside as well. Thank you for having me, folks. Thank you.